Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fight Addicts. Get ready to explore the past, present, and future of MMA with your hosts, Seth Oliver and Ben Korn.
What's up, fight fans? Welcome to the very first episode of the Fight Addicts. On this episode, we're going to be discussing the aftermath of Till versus Masvidal, Conor McGregor, Tony Ferguson, UFC Nashville, the Hughes twins, and much more. Very quickly, be sure to check out our blog at thefightaddicts.com and stay up to date with us by following at The Fight Addicts on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And be sure to subscribe to us on whatever platform you're listening on and leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy what we put out. My co-host today is my former high school teacher and good friend, the one and only Mr. Benjamin Korn.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I am here, and I'm happy to say that in 2019, the Hughes brothers are still making MMA headlines. That's a good thing. Not necessarily for what they're making them for. So episode 1, I'm more of the old school guy here. So, yeah, Hughes brothers always makes me happy.
Yeah, the Hughes brothers, they're always a good time. You're right. It is crazy that we're seeing them in 2019, and it's under very unfortunate circumstances, but we still see them. They made headlines, and they're going to be towards the later end of this podcast. But first, we're going to get into Till versus Masvidal. Ben, what were your thoughts when you see Jorge Masvidal's left hand connect with Darren Till's chin in the O2 Arena in London and send him onto the canvas? What's going through your mind in that moment?
Well, it was a good fight. What was going through my mind whenever I saw it happen was Darren Till looks a lot bigger than Jorge Masvidal. That was the thought that I had. But it felt like Masvidal had shown to be a lot slicker and a lot quicker and a lot tougher than Till really thought he was going to be, I think.
I agree with you on that.
So, yeah, it's sort of like with Leon Edwards. And
he beat your boy Gunnar Nelson.
Yeah, except on that one card, which is hilarious, except on the 29-28 Nelson card.
Yeah, that was crazy. How does that even happen? How do you score that fight that way?
I don't know. I've got to look that up.
There was a lot of bad judging at the UFC London card.
Yes,
yeah.
There was a lot of bad judging.
Yeah, but very quickly going back to the main event for just a second. So for those of you that don't know, this podcast was recorded after UFC London, which was Darren Till versus Jorge Masvidal. The event was held at the O2 Arena in London and was a sold-out crowd with 16,602 in attendance. The gate was actually the highest ever in UFC London history with 2.4 million. And the main event got the fight of the night. And our American boy, Dan Ige, got knockout of the night. Or, I'm sorry, he got submission of the night. Did you watch that fight against him? I want to say it was Danny Henry was the guy's name.
This was the prelims.
Yes.
Didn't see the prelims, man.
Yeah.
I'm that guy today. I'm sorry.
That used to be. Yeah, that usually is me.
Full disclosure. Whenever we said that we were going to do this, I told Seth that he had to watch everything, including like it's not the Facebook prelims anymore. It's the UFC streaming
Fight Pass
prelims. See, I'm back from when it was the Facebook prelims, if I can say those words. So I told Seth that he had to watch it all, and then I didn't watch it all for this.
Yeah,
card.
Which I do now. I didn't back in the day, but I've started to, especially since recording this podcast. Did you see the backstage altercation between Leon Edwards and Jorge Masvidal?
Yes.
Do you think that sets up a fight between those two next, since they're both the winners from this card, or do you think that we should put different opponents in front of them?
It depends on if they press charges. Because there was an assault that took place. And now if they want to settle it in the streets, like in a cage instead of like backstage.
I'm guessing you have Masvidal winning that in the streets.
I don't know.
Oh,
I have no idea. Oh, in the streets?
Yeah.
Because he's going to kill him. It would not be a fair. Yeah. But anyway, I think that Masvidal versus Edwards is a wild fight.
I think that's the fight to
Because
make.
that would be a very good fight.
Yeah, especially with what happened afterward. It's hard for me to say that you don't make that fight next because they were both ranked 10 and 11th at the time. They both put on impressive performances, and I would like to see Masvidal take out another British guy, but it would be tough. Tougher than the Till fight, I think, for him.
Yes, because of the grappling. Because Edwards showed that he has as good of grappling skills as Gunnar Nelson on the floor.
Which is pretty scary
Which
if you're in the
means that
welterweight
he
division.
is super good on the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, he put him in some bad spots. He put Gunnar in some bad spots on the floor, which I was like, this is bizarre. This is very odd. I didn't see that coming. So now I'm super high on Edwards. Although I do think that Masvidal would approach that fight differently than Gunnar Nelson would. Like, Masvidal is way more dangerous on his feet than Gunnar Nelson was on his feet. Gunnar Nelson in the slouch on his feet, but he's also a karate, weird side stance.
A little bit like Wonder Boy.
Yeah.
With the side stance.
Darting in a lot. Like, he tries to load up and time you to where he can kind of bounce in like Machida at you almost a lot. If you move too much, you can kind of like break him, sort of like John Jones did to Anthony Smith, where you're moving so much that he's just kind of watching you, not doing anything. And that's a problem for Nelson. He should shoot more and grapple more.
So with Darren Till now being on 2 consecutive losses to Tyron Woodley and Jorge Masvidal, do you see anybody in mind for him that he should face next out of that welterweight division, or is it just kind of up in the air right now in your opinion?
Have him fight Lawler.
Ooh.
They both lost. Losers versus losers, right?
See, I had RDA based off that principle because RDA's lost his last 2. It's been to Colby and Usman.
That's a horrible fight for RDA. I mean, like, I think that he kills RDA.
Yeah. I think so too.
He's huge at 170 pounds, and RDA could make 155.
Yeah.
Anybody that can make 155 should not fight Darren Till.
Now, speaking of that,
Yeah.
should Till fight his next fight at welterweight, or is now the time to make the move up to middleweight?
Well, he should fight at welterweight as long as he can. If he feels like he lost this fight because he was cutting weight, then yeah. But like, I felt like all of his advantage in this fight was because he was huge. If he had fought Jorge Masvidal, and Jorge Masvidal was also 6'1" and as rangy as Darren Till is, like, he's a smaller dude and not as powerful. If you had allowed someone to be as big and strong as a lot of those 108, can you imagine Yoel Romero fighting Darren Till? Like, because I think that he mauls him.
I mean, yeah, I definitely think so too. It's just
that was always my thing when GSP came back. I was like, do you really want GSP to fight Yoel Romero?
Or even Robert Whitaker, which I know that he made the cut to 170, but to me, he looks big, like fighting at middleweight. Yeah. Like, it's crazy for me to think that he should be fighting at 170.
But that's a realistic fight. But there are certain dudes at 185.
Yeah,
I'm just like, oh no, that's bad. Mm-hmm. That's going to end bad. There's a huge weight advantage, you know? So it's sort of like when Ben Henderson started toying around that he was going to go to 170. Watch some of those fights in both the UFC and then in Bellator. Like, he managed to beat Brandon Thatch when he did in the UFC, but Brandon Thatch is way beneath him on the skill level. But yeah, sorry, a little bit of a rabbit trail there.
No, that's okay. So for Masvidal, like we were talking about earlier, is Edwards the next fight to make? Probably. Or do you have somebody else in mind for him?
Probably. If both of them decide not to, like, press charge. I mean, I know that's a joke, but, like, if they're both cool with that happening.
And just settling it out in the octagon.
And then they decide that they're going to be adults and be like, we got a date to do this. So we'll do it in the cage. That's fine.
I hope we get to see that.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a very good fight.
Yeah.
So where does Funky Ben Askren fit into all this? Because he was there, because he was planning on Till winning, and then him he even talked about going into the octagon and calling out Till from there, and then all that fell through thanks to Jorge Masvidal. So where do you think that he fits into this mix? Does he fight any of these guys, or does he just kind of hold out for a little bit, or title shot? against Usman, or where does he stand in all this?
I think that you set up, okay, and again, this is just me saying this, but
So
here's
this
what
is
you
what
do. Here's
Ben
what you
wants
do
to
if I'm gonna map this out. Okay, so you set up Usman versus Colby on the same card that you have Tyron. Well, you can't do Tyron versus Askren because they won't
said
fight
they're
each
not gonna
other.
Fight.
See,
And that's
a
a
problem.
fight that we need to see.
Yeah, because then you would have it be an eliminator of if anything falls through, you put Askren in there against either Colby or Usman. Because really it's those three. It's Usman, Colby, and Askren, who are all these basically undefeated. Colby's lost, but like...
Colby's lost, and Usman does have one defeat, but it came before the UFC.
Right.
So,
and Askren has no defeats.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, Askren probably has one of the more suspect not defeats because of that,
Yeah.
So you've got those three, and then you've got Woodley on the outside looking in. You've got Lawler, who's always a good fight. You've got a lot of...
rematch Woodley and Lawler?
You could. But I don't think that Tyron Woodley takes that fight.
Ooh, really?
I think that Tyron Woodley does what Tyron Woodley does and just doesn't take the fight. And he holds out.
Oh, you're meaning, okay.
He says,
I thought
deserve
you were
it.
meaning lose by that. Like he doesn't take the win. But you're meaning like
I
he
mean,
actually
like he doesn't
take the fight.
I mean, the fight never happens because
Right.
he says that Robbie Lawler is beneath him and that he's already beaten him and that he should get a title shot.
Yeah.
That's how
Kind
I
of
feel.
pulling a Stipe with like, I get my rematch or nothing else.
Kind of pulling a Tyron. Like he's been doing that
Yeah.
forever. Like, so yeah, he's just going to continue on form, But, there's all kinds of people out there that you could. Welterweight and lightweight are the two divisions that are the most they're deep.
Yeah, they're really
things.
fun right now.
Because, as far as human beings in the world, grown men are going to fall into that category when you get them in the best shape physically possible. 155 or 170 pounds. Like you got big dudes that get bigger than that or little dudes that get smaller than that, but usually 155, 170.
Yeah. So speaking of lightweights, Mr. Conor McGregor made headlines this past week on Monday, which this is being recorded on Sunday, March the 17th. But for those of you who have somehow not heard the story, on March the 11th, Conor McGregor allegedly smashed and dispossessed the phone of Ahmed Abdirzak in Miami, Florida. McGregor was charged with 2 felonies, strong-arm robbery, and criminal mischief, according to Sports Illustrated, their article that they put out, which says that Abdirzak has sued McGregor over the incident for battery, assault, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. TMZ released a video of the incident, and it doesn't exactly describe what you might think from the charges that I just read. Ben, have you seen the video of McGregor stomping on the phone?
Yes.
Do you think that Abdirzak is overreacting from this? Is Conor in the wrong? What?
Conor's in the wrong because you can't take someone's phone and smash it. Can't do that. But, is it strong arm robbery and all that? No. But here's the thing. I was talking to my lovely wife about this the other night. If everybody remembers, so I was a history teacher, and I have a degree in history, so I always look back at the historical precedent for this, for any type of thing. And the first thing that came to my mind was O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson got away with murder. Allegedly, I suppose you could say, even though he was found responsible in the civil suit of causing the death of those 2 people. So, and there's a lot to that case, by the way. I'm not saying that I would have voted guilty. That's a whole podcast.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole
to do that
podcast
soon.
as to itself. Lots wrong with O.J. Simpson. But he got labeled as a murderer. He couldn't go back and work football games as a commentator because it ruined him, Well, when he got in trouble and actually went to prison, he got a lot of charges for he broke into someone's hotel room and took back a jersey that he had signed. It was his jersey. It was his memorabilia that was his from his career or whatever. And there was a dealer in Vegas who had a lot of famous O.J. Simpson stuff. And O.J. Simpson felt it necessary to dispossess this man of these things that used to be O.J. Simpson's. And he went there with a couple of dudes. The couple of dudes happened to have guns. And so when O.J. gets tried for this, he gets the maximum sentence possible because he got away with murder before. That never gets said. But if O.J. Simpson had not clearly murdered people years in the past, then his sentence wouldn't have been as long as it was where he went to prison.
That's
So
interesting.
What I'm thinking is, at some point, one of these little things that McGregor does, at some point, because him throwing the dolly into the van or the bus and smashing the window out,
Yeah.
that got somehow put under the bridge, even though he got glass in people's eyes. Like, if he had blinded Rose Namajunas, Mrs. Pat Berry, if he had,
Miss HD.
yeah, yeah, if he had blinded her, would we be talking about this? I think he'd probably be incarcerated.
Yeah. Well, have you heard that? I mean, shortly after, she talked about like she couldn't even leave her house from like the emotional stress that event put on her.
Here's the thing.
So even though it didn't affect her physically,
Yeah.
emotionally she was very torn up.
And
about
I'm
it.
a skeptical human being. I hope legitimately that that's not true and that she just wants to get paid. Like, I don't wish her any psychological problems from what
No, we
went
love
on.
you, Rose. You're a good,
Yeah, exactly.
great fighter.
Exactly. Yeah. Tricky fighter. She's good on her feet and on the ground. Absolutely. But if somebody threw something that was going to become infinitely rich and my wife was there, I would hope that she would say that she had some emotional damages done so that somebody with the kind of pocketbook that Conor McGregor's team of people would have to pay for my grandchildren's college.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, that's
Yeah. So,
That's
I
a
mean,
good way
like,
to look at it.
is it the worst thing in the world that he did this? No. But at some point, when you continuously break the law, one of these things is going to stick, and it's not going to be monetarily.
right.
It's going to be bad. You're going to get it to where you can't come into our country anymore type thing. And
Yeah,
that's going to
Michael
be bad.
Bisping made a comment about that, how this might affect his visa and him coming over here to fight.
Yeah, it could. That'd be bad.
That's a crazy thought to think about if something like that does. And I say something like that as in, obviously that's bad. It's not the end of the world, him throwing a fan's phone and stomping it. But like you said, I mean,
Well, here's
it was
a throwback.
something out of order.
Here's a throwback. Do you remember in your junior year of high school when we were in class on my first day as your teacher, Digby slapped someone and someone slapped Digby?
Garrett.
Yeah, Garrett and Digby like punched each other in the middle of class. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to stop class now because like in the real world, you can't hit someone. Like I've worked in like private Christian school and prison.
I've been extremes.
Yeah, I've been in both places. And like, yeah, you can't put your hands on people. And so when people put their hands on other people in the real world, there are consequences for that. And so I don't know if there are going to be consequences for Jorge Masvidal. I don't know if there are going to be consequences for Conor McGregor. I don't know.
So with an incident like this and the Dolly incident and then Conor going after Mark Goddard at Bellator after one of his friends' fights,
Yeah.
do you think that these will impact his performance inside the octagon? And do you think we'll ever hear and new UFC lightweight champion Conor McGregor? Will we ever hear those words from Bruce Buffer's mouth, or are we on the decline of the McGregor era?
The only way you'll hear that is if something bizarre happens and it's like an interim belt situation where he just shows up,
So
like
let's say Khabib stays champion for the next, we'll say 5 to 7 years. Conor never beats
he's not
him.
going to stay champion for 5 to 7
5
years.
years. 5 years.
Let me just hold on.
He's
like,
30.
Hold the phone here. Like, I'm a person who very vividly remembers when the Machida era began and then ended like 6 months later.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, look, don't ever say, well, so-and-so's going to be the champion for 5 years. Like,
I said we'll assume for this.
We'll assume that
this
Cain Velasquez is just going to dominate the heavyweight division for eternity. You know? Like, you can't make assumptions. There's been like one Fedor, one GSP, one Anderson, you know?
All the Khabib fanboys right now are just like foaming out the mouth listening to you. Just talking about how like this man is insane. Not thinking that our Khabib is going to stay undefeated and be undefeated lightweight champion until he rides off into the sunset. How long do you think he'll be champion then?
I mean, like, I'm not even saying that he's going to necessarily get beat. He could get like Velasquez, where he basically gets hurt, so he has to pull out of this fight, and then he can't get another one scheduled, so they have an interim thing, and then he gets
Which he's done in the past.
He gets food poisoning on the day before, or his weight cut goes terrible and his kidneys fail. So now the next time you see Khabib, he'll be at 170 pounds manually because Dana's pissed, you know, and he's never allowed to fight at 155 again until. So then Conor steps in against a striker. Who would have thunk it? And then he can get the belt, yeah. He steps in against someone who is a striker. He can beat him.
What percentage do you think that something like that happens? Something like that is in what percentage do we see Conor ever as the UFC lightweight champion again?
15%, 20%. Yeah, 1 in 5. Sure. He's got the skills. He's done it before.
Yeah, he's personally my favorite fighter to watch. I absolutely love watching him fight. I love his stand-up. I love how he just flows when he's in the octagon. And he's kind of what brought me back into the sport because I remember you came over to my house. We watched UFC 194 together.
Yep.
When he took on Jose Aldo. Because I was like, I have to buy this pay-per-view and get back into UFC.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, he kind of got – I still remember feeling like I was a Nostradamus because I predicted him losing to Nate Diaz and Miesha Tate beating Holly Holm. Like, both of those upsets on that same card. I felt like a genius because I was like, yeah, Nate Diaz, I think he's going to be able to take his shots because he's bigger than him. And size really matters whenever you've got, I don't know, how much taller is Nate? I mean, when you're fighting Chad Mendez, when you're fighting the German,
Dennis Seaver,
and then you go to Nate Diaz,
it's a big
different animal. Yeah. Yeah. And Nate Diaz is even different than fighting Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, lot longer. So there's like, well, uh-oh.
Did you read about Paulie Malignaggi's call out of Conor McGregor?
Now, is he going to fight?
Paulie has signed with Bare Knuckle FC.
And Artem has signed with Bare Knuckle.
Right. Now, Artem has a fight scheduled, but the plan is Artem wins his fight, which is coming up very soon.
And then he dies against Malignaggi. Also, does he have to win?
Their fight is expected to be in June.
Does he have to win his fight?
I mean, that's what they're saying, but
really,
does he have to win?
Yeah, like, who's Artem fighting? Because he could lose. He could really lose. He could lose in spectacular fashion.
I believe the guy's name is Jason Knight.
Jason Knight, the MMA fighter? Jason Knight?
I would assume so because he's fighting in bare knuckle. I'll look it up very quickly.
Okay, we'll look that up. But the thing is, like, Artem doesn't have he doesn't have a winning record in MMA, right?
I want to say he's 14-15.
Yeah.
Like 14-15-1.
Yeah. Exactly. So if he steps in there where you can only strike with your hands, and he tries to do his hands down bob and weave thing against a boxer, he's going to get hurt. He's going to get hurt bad. But if he's fighting some guy off the street, then he'll knock him out. Because he is still a professional fighter who hangs out with Conor McGregor. Can't knock him for that.
Yeah, Artem will be fighting Jason Knight, the UFC veteran. So it is MMA fighter Jason Knight.
Yeah.
He has lost his last 4. He's lost to Ricardo Lamas, Gabriel Benitez, Makwan Armakarna, and Jordan Rinaldi. His last win was against Chas Skelly,
Chase Skelly.
Chase Skelly. Sorry, he didn't have an E at the end, and I've never heard of him before.
Maybe it is. Yeah, but
He does
I've
have a
heard
win
of
over
him,
Dan
though.
Hooker. He won by unanimous decision.
What weight does he fight at? Hold on. You said Ricardo Lamas?
Yes. So that would
So
be
he's
featherweight.
145? Yeah.
Yeah, he fights at 145.
What weight?
And that's
does
what
Dan,
Artem fights at.
What weight does Dan Hooker fight at? Am I
Dan Hooker just fought Barboza at lightweight.
Okay.
Which would be 155.
Okay. Yeah. So Artem is going to be bigger than him, right? Or is he 145? Is Artem 145?
Artem's 145.
Need to remember where he is. Yeah. Yeah, he should beat that guy. Because that guy's on a skid. How old is that? How old is Knight? Since he lost 4
Knight is 26.
Ooh. Well. So
Might be a
Artem
good
is,
fight.
Yeah. Who knows?
Are you
sure I'll
pulling
watch
for
it.
Artem to win it?
Yeah, so that he can
too.
so that he can fight the boxer.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you're pretty confident in Malignaggi?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Tony Ferguson has also made some news this week, along with Conor McGregor, for unfortunate events. So, according to MMA Junkie, well, let me give credit. Stephen Morocco is the one who published this article from MMA Junkie. In the article, it says that a judge has granted Tony's wife, Christina, a temporary restraining order after some very weird psychotic behavior from Tony Ferguson. She claims that her husband has been acting violent, and it's been getting worse since 2017. And here's some of the things that he's been doing. It says on February 5th, Christina claimed that her husband had stayed up all night and woke them up to demand they leave because the lunar eclipse would cause a flood. He had purchased a life raft and drove them 111 miles from their home to Palm Desert, California. And in the midst of the episode, he agreed to medical treatment, but he later refused. On February 12th, Christina alleged Tony had a psychotic break and screamed at her, believing her to be someone else, and she woke up later to Tony standing overhead and accusing her of being a witch. And then on February the 16th, Tony did a couple of things. He allegedly believed there were cameras in the refrigerator and ceiling fan. He cut the wires to the HVAC unit because he believed a tracking device was inside, tore the vanity mirror off the wall because he believed something was behind it, and took his son's food away because he believed it was poisoned. And as MMA Junkie reported earlier in the article, Christina told police that he kept throwing holy water at her and refused to go to a hospital for an evaluation. So Tony had a pretty crazy month of February.
Yeah, you see why it's Poirier and Holloway.
Yeah.
Because originally it was like, well, why is Tony getting the shaft? Well, apparently somebody knew about this before it happened. That's what it feels like to me.
And I applaud Dana White now for respecting his privacy and not coming out and saying all of this. Because because people were bombarding him with questions, like, oh, Dana, you're terrible. Why didn't you pick Tony for this? And he just said, I can't make Tony fight, was always his answer.
Yeah.
But now this has come out, it makes me respect Dana more.
Well, yeah. I mean,
that he didn't just come out and say, like, yeah, Tony's going through a...
Well, you want to also,
right now.
like, playing devil's advocate, and not that... I have mixed feelings about Dana White as a human being, but, like, playing devil's advocate, if he was Bjorn Rebney, I know exactly what I would think. And that would be, you protect your investment. Which is, like, if you say, yeah, he's crazy, he's gotten hit in the head a bunch because he works for us, and now he's crazy. That's the worst thing you can say. Like, no, he's fine. You need to get him some help, and you don't need this to be a headline. Because you have a sport where people lose consciousness repeatedly and get their brain smacked around in their head. So when one of them starts throwing holy water at their wife and doing crazy stuff, you need to get that checked out, but you don't want it in the headlines.
Right.
Absolutely not. You want as few stories about Gary Goodrich as you can possibly have.
So what do you think is the cause of this behavior? Where do you think this comes from, being punched in the head multiple times? Do you think he's on some type of medication?
Is he being USADA tested? Which the answer is yes. And he hasn't been tested positive, so it's probably from getting hit in the head.
So what do you think makes him different from all the other fighters? Because there have been other fighters that have taken just as much, if not more damage than Tony.
Oh, I'm not trying to say that people can't. I mean, like, here's the problem. Like,
and this isn't me disagreeing with you. I'm just asking you.
Well, like, I feel like sometimes people will turn a blind eye to, like, every once in a while sometimes people can get hit in the head over and over and over again, and they're absolutely fine. They're going to be all right. It doesn't have permanent negative
Most
effects.
of the fighters.
Ozzy Osbourne is still alive. Like, he did things that other people can't do. And, like, fighters are tough dudes. So, like, they're going to be able to, you go into it with a different mindset. Like, who knows how many times Tony has been messed up from getting hit and was like, I'm fine. Yeah. And you're not fine, and you keep getting hit, and you're like, I'm fine.
Well, he's a fighter that people have pointed out. He does take a lot of damage in his fights. Mm-hmm. He gets hit a lot. He got dropped in the last fight against Anthony Pettis, and he took a lot of damage in that fight.
Yeah. Well, there was a reason that at a certain point you get knocked unconscious, like, for, like, your own preservation. Like, it's bad. Like, Jonathan Goulet, the guy who had the glassiest of glass chins, he had to stop because he just kept getting knocked out. But, like, I don't think that he's throwing holy water at anybody because he got punched in the head, like, hundreds of times less than Tony Ferguson does, because Tony Ferguson can just absorb 100 of them. That doesn't mean that his brain doesn't take the exact same impact as Jonathan Goulet that could take one, and he's out. Like, if you can just keep getting hit, that's not good in the long run. It's good for right now.
With Max versus Holloway about to fight for the interim belt, Khabib being sidelined.
Max versus Holloway.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good catch right there. Max versus Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
Khabib being sidelined for the next couple months. Conor doing God knows what, wherever, whenever. If Tony were to somehow fight, say in 2019, say he recovers, just say that it's said that he recovers. We don't know if he really has or not, but say he does step back into the cage. Do you think that all this is going to impact his performance, or will we see the old Tony Ferguson?
There's no way to tell. Ring rust is a real thing. Like, it depends on how long it takes him to get back to the cage. Like, and also who he's fighting. It depends on who he's fighting.
That was my next question. Who would you like to see him fight if he comes back in the crazy lightweight division?
Yeah, let's get crazy.
Okay.
He doesn't come back for a year, and he fights Michael Chandler in Michael Chandler's UFC debut.
Who do you have for that fight?
Chandler.
How does he get it done?
He knocks him out because he's rusty. This is terrible. I know it's wrong, but yeah, I don't know. And then you can do Chandler Alvarez 3 in the UFC.
Except that Eddie's in 1.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he's back there with Vitor.
But they're on friendly terms with 1.
Right? Yeah.
Because they did
made
trade.
The trade.
Yeah.
For the first time.
So just do another trade. Just do another trade. Get Eddie back for 1 fight. You get Eddie for 1 fight. You get Michael Chandler for a 2-fight deal. And his first one, he has to fight Tony. So that you'll be able to gauge where he's going to be ranked right there. And then you have him fight Eddie because Eddie they have the rubber match.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a ridiculous fantasy, but yeah, go ahead.
Dylan Danis made headlines this week where he said that he would put up $1 million to hand Ben Askren his first loss in MMA. Ben, if that fight were to somehow, in some crazy universe, materialize, how does that fight go down?
Ben Askren will dominate him in ridiculous fashion. And key lock him or something. Some kind of maybe even bulldog choke him. Some kind of ridiculous thing. Maybe not a key lock. Look, it's wrong to say, oh yeah, he's just going to jiu-jitsu Dylan Danis, but he will wrestle him to death. He put him in horrible positions and just big brother him.
You definitely say that Askren's wrestling is better than Dylan Danis' jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
I would hope that most people would. I don't think it's very close, or at least as close as Dylan Danis wants to make it. How big of a fan are you of Dylan Danis?
I hate Dylan Danis.
So you're along with the rest of the MMA community on that one?
Yeah. I hate Dylan Dennis.
Do you even think he has $1 million? Or do you think he would have to get some up from Conor?
There's no way that he has $1 million. No way. Just like at his disposable, like at his
that he could throw up.
Yeah, like that he could just literally get liquid $1 million. No way. Absolutely not. Does Conor have $1 million? Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, probably. I still think he has to pull some strings. I don't think that he could just whip out $1 million. He's not
Conor
Floyd.
McGregor?
Yeah, he's not Floyd Mayweather. He's got that money somewhere. But I think that there are fighters in the world that are like, here's $1 million. Bring him the briefcase. You got the briefcase? Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
All right, so earlier at the very beginning of the podcast in the intro, we mentioned the Hughes brothers have made headlines, and you said that you're happy that in 2019 we still get to hear about the Hughes. Even though it's an unfortunate situation, what happened was, according to MMA Junkie, former UFC welterweight champion Matt Hughes is suing his brother Mark over the ownership of a tractor. No monetary damages have been listed. Hughes merely hopes that a judge will decide who owns the John Deere 8410, I guess you would say, tractor in question.
At least it's not a Kubota. Shout out to all y'all tractor fans out there. We're living in Tennessee right now, so I figured I'd throw in a little bit of the tractor talk. No, were you done with that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The most interesting thing about that story is the whole gasoline part of it. Did you read the gasoline part of it?
I did read the gasoline part.
Yeah. So
I'll read it to everybody that doesn't know.
Yeah, go ahead for that.
The gasoline story is that it says, according to the article from BJPen.com, Mark Hughes also alleges that Matt Hughes may have later tried to destroy the tractor by dousing it in gasoline. This is Mark being quoted. While I'm not sure if my brother's intent was to burn the tractor, merely running a diesel engine with gasoline in the tank will destroy the engine, Mark wrote. I called my wife Emily and asked her to keep my brother at our house until I got there. When I got home, I met my brother in my driveway. While he denied everything, he had 2 empty 5-gallon buckets in the back of his truck. The buckets smelled of gasoline. One of the buckets had the lid missing, and I later found the lid laying next to the tractor.
And that was Mark confronting Matt, Matt said, I didn't do that.
Right.
Yeah. What if, and this is just me spitballing here, what if there's actually a third Hughes brother that looks exactly like Matt and Mark Hughes?
So there's really
that's
triplets.
he's trying to set the tractor on fire, and he's also trying to fight BJ Penn coming up in his MMA debut. What about it? I think so.
So that's the real story behind it all.
I think so. He's making people read Esther and set tractors on fire. Shout out to
I shouldn't say what's his name because we got Matt, Mark,
Melvin Hughes.
Melvin Hughes.
Triple M.
All right, I guess we'll get into the Fight Night 148 predictions. I don't really know how to follow that up.
That's it. That is how you follow it up. Silence.
I'm happy that we had that in there. I'm happy that you sent that to me because I wouldn't have put it in there if you wouldn't have sent it to me from Facebook.
Did you see the thing that I put up on my Facebook that was from Masvidal before it all happened?
No, I get on Facebook like maybe once a week and I just scroll for like 30 seconds.
Beforehand, he was like, eventually somebody's going to say something outside of the ring. Like, I don't do all this trash talk stuff, and someone's going to get killed. Like, he was like, trash talk is eventually going to turn deadly. And so then he wins that fight. And he's like, excuse me? Just starts a brawl.
Did you see the cut on Edwards' eye after it? Because somebody put up an extended video where you kind of see what happens afterwards, after they clear him all. They clear him, and you just see Leon has this big old like gash.
Good.
I think on the left side of his face.
He deserved
it's
it.
dripping in blood.
He deserved it.
Yeah. Masvidal said he gave him the 3-piece and a soda.
Nice.
Yeah, I was happy to hear him say that.
Mm-hmm.
UFC Fight Night 48 is coming up. I'm sorry, UFC Fight Night 148 is coming up in Nashville, which is where we live, roughly. A little bit outside of Nashville.
Yeah, 30 miles to the north.
And it's headlined by Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Anthony Showtime Pettis,
Yeah.
who is making his welterweight debut. How do you see this fight going down?
That's a tough one, man. I would assume that Wonder Boy is a big favorite. Do you know the odds on it?
I'll look up the odds real quick. How much of a favorite do you think that he is?
He should be a 2-1 favorite in that fight. I mean, like, if it starts getting into 3-1 or 4-1, you should put some money on it on Showtime, because in his last fight, when we watched him fight Tony Ferguson, he almost got Tony out of there. So, I don't know. I don't like the fact that he's now going up to 170.
The best odds right now are Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is a negative 400 favorite and Pettis is a plus 368.
Put some money on Pettis.
Will you be putting your fake money on Pettis?
I'll be putting some fake money on Pettis because there's too much. That's what I did with Masvidal and Till, people. I picked Till to win the fight, straight up. But then I saw that Masvidal was a 2-1 underdog, and I thought, that's not right. He shouldn't be 2-1 underdog. There's no way that he only has a 33% chance of winning this fight, you know? So,
do you know off the top of your head what's the most fake money you made off of a fight? I guess I should say the biggest underdog that you picked that ended up winning.
It would probably be when I picked that Miesha Tate was going to submit Holly Holm. Because not only did I pick that Miesha Tate was going to win, I picked that she was going to tap her. And she did. And I was like, yeah. Don't sleep on Tate's ground game. But yeah, that was probably my biggest. Like, I picked it. I said it was going to happen. It happened. Oh, that's not true. I picked Eddie Alvarez round 1 knockout over RDA.
Really?
Yeah. And I got a bunch of fake money there because it was some kind of ridiculous, like, plus 900 that he would knock him out in the first round. And I was like, well, if he gets it done, that's probably the way he's going to do it. You know, he'll kind of get a cheap one in there.
Yeah.
And I was like, yep, hey, woohoo.
The co-main event of UFC Nashville is Curtis Blades and Justin Willis. I think that's a pretty good heavyweight fight.
Flip a coin, man. That's how I feel on that one.
Do you have any favorite that you lean towards in that? I'm leaning towards Curtis Blades.
I was going to say Curtis Blades. Yeah,
I think it'll probably just be a boring decision, to be honest. But I don't think that either one of them finished each other.
I was going to say I see a lot of wind sucking in that fight. Like, a lot of people just huffing and puffing.
So, like, a little milder version of Kimbo and Dada 5000?
A much milder version of that. Hopefully with less death. Hopefully with less cardiac arrest of one of the people involved. Just falling like a wounded seal to the ground. Oh. That's a low point, man. That and Shamrock Gracie 3. Oh, Lord. That was just so bad. Some of what Bellator has done is just unforgivable if you really think about it. And I really think about it. I think about it a lot, honestly.
I'm waiting for De La Hoya to put on Shamrock Gracie 4.
Yeah.
You said the other day.
Yeah, I texted you that the other day.
Yeah, you did.
That De La Hoya is going to put on Shamrock Gracie 4. What was the co-main?
That was the co-main.
That was the co-main.
The main was Tony Ferguson and Matt Hughes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I told you it was going to be Tony versus... Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about working Diego Sanchez versus Ferguson when we're talking about holy water and stuff. Like,
so he has to come out to the cross.
If he comes out with a cross, can you imagine like what's going through Tony's mind? Like, he's seeing people in his walls and stuff, and then Diego Sanchez is walking out with a cross in front of him, shouting
screaming
yes.
Yeah.
I know what's going through his mind. Ankle pick. That's what's going through his mind.
It's like the one time he's got a rational thought going on.
Yeah. As long as you remember that, everything will be okay. Tony by ankle pick.
We should make a podcast where it's just us picking a fight card. If we were Oscar De La Hoya and we had to make a card.
Yeah.
And just the most ridiculous fights.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it would be as successful as Oscar De La Hoya's venture. Probably. In a lot of ways. Because
I think it had 30,000 pay-per-view
buys.
Well,
see, like, because if we just talk about it, that means that we don't invest, I don't know how much money into something that's only going to do 30,000 pay-per-view buys and have to eat. Like, I don't know however much money that costs to do. I don't know how much money that costs, but
Do we get Tito to do the commentary?
I hope so. I hope we do.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of The Fight Addicts. Our goal is to always bring you guys high-quality podcasts, and if you feel like we did that today, please subscribe to us and leave us a 5-star review. Be sure to check out our blog at thefightaddicts.com and stay up to date with us by following The Fight Addicts on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see y'all next time.
Peace.